Welcome to Fast Track Gains. I'm here to help you accelerate your gains. This is the second episode of my 8th series, The Unsung Heroes. As promised in the last episode, we will introduce the cousin of the first unsung hero, and the name of our second unsung hero is called Brachioradialis. You see, these two muscles do sound very similar, don't they? Brachialis and Brachioradialis. And it's not just the similar names that make these two muscles cousins. They're actually located right next to each other, and they're usually fused together as a whole unit when both are fully developed. Let's still first use myself as an example. In this photo, if you follow the lumpy area of brachialis on the upper arm, you will find that there is another small triangle-shaped muscle that is connected to the brachialis. This is brachioradialis. And as usual, let's use another accomplished bodybuilder as an example. This time, Jay Cutler and his iconic quad stomp in 2009 Mr. Olympia. Now granted, his feathered quads are the most eye-catching component of the whole picture, hence the name quad stomp. But it is those small details like bulging brachioradialis and brachialis that really made his physique more three-dimensional, more complete, and more impressive. Just like its cousin, the main function of the brachioradialis is to flex the elbow. And in most cases, when your wrist is in neutral position, they do work in conjunction to flex your elbow. This is why hammer curls are a solid choice for training both brachialis and brachioradialis. However, as close as these two cousins are, there's still some key differences. The first one is that the brachialis originates on the humerus and it inserts on the ulna, which is the longer bone on the pinky side of the forearm. As ulna is not involved in wrist rotation, that's why brachialis is acting as a pure flexor and is therefore the strongest elbow flexor. Whereas the brachioradialis, it originates on the humerus and it inserts on the radius, which is the thumb side or the short bone of the forearm. As radius is involved in wrist rotation, brachioradialis will also contribute to supination and pronation and stabilizing the elbow. That's why pull-ups, chin-ups, bicep curls, and reverse curls can all train brachioradialis. However, although the brachioradialis can multitask, its main function still remains as elbow flexion, and its single-minded cousin, brachialis, does a much better job than that. So, one muscle is one-trick pony, the other muscle is jack of all trades. Still cousins, but quite different. The second key difference is perhaps even more interesting than the first one. The brachialis is a deep muscle in the upper arm, whereas brachioradialis is a superficial muscle in the forearm. This contrast of deep versus superficial unfortunately makes a world of difference in the eyes of human beings, and perhaps nobody explained this better than Dr. Orion Taraban.
I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is PsychHacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is the superficiality of desire. So I've been kicking around this episode in my head for a while, and I've come to the conclusion that humans seem to be more or less hopelessly, tragically superficial with respect to what they are attracted to.
As brachioradialis is a superficial muscle, and it is located on your forearm. Unlike your biceps or your quads that can be covered in shirt sleeves or pants, this is a muscle that can be literally exposed to the general public 24/7, 365 days to showcase your muscularity without any inconsideration or any inconvenience. In fact, I would argue that it is even easier to showcase muscularity with brachioradialis than a woman to showcase her curves with cleavage, though the latter will definitely draw much more attention than the former. In any case, brachioradialis might be the most superficial muscle out of all the muscles in the body that will instantly attract anybody's attention. That's why actors like Sylvester Stallone are fully aware of this effect and are taking advantage of it. Just look at this picture. He's not showing you any other muscle but only the veiny and freaky brachioradialis, and you will know that this is a badass. That's why in my eyes, if we are talking about the real show muscle, the brachioradialis is a much stronger contender than the mainstream biceps. Compared to this always in the limelight high-key cousin, the status of brachialis is much more obscure and low-key. Firstly, for most of the time, it is covered by your shirt sleeves, and even that, it generally has to give way to the more overrated biceps. And secondly, although it bears a much heavier workload than biceps and the brachioradialis, the brachialis will only clearly show its existence when you are very lean. Otherwise, you will be just covered under body fat and render itself unrecognizable. And let's just use me as an example again. In this photo, you can clearly see my brachioradialis, but as I am not lean enough, the brachialis just gets lost in my upper arm. So still cousins, but in terms of attracting your attention, it is night and day. You might even argue that the brachioradialis should not belong to the unsung heroes list because of this extremely high visibility. But as it is the closest cousin to our first unsung hero, and its name is still far from universally well known as biceps, I think I may just give it a squeak by. Let's say, guys, the second of our unsung heroes. If you want to look impressive, even well dressed, then you cannot miss training your brachioradialis, the real show muscle for any jacked dudes. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. In the next episode, I will start introducing the muscles that receive less attention but are actually much more important than their famous siblings. So stay tuned. Thank you for your support, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.